It's almost 2025, so it's time for a little bit of a reflection about what I read in 2024. First of all, I read 164 books as of the 30th, but like that's insane considering in 2023 I read 36. So like a huge increase. I am so proud of myself. However, not all of those were winners. So let's talk about the 5 books I fucking hated from 2024. A lot of these are going to be familiar. In 5th place, we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was fucking boring. First of all, this is supposed to be like a supernatural, like enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, vampires versus werewolf kind of thing. However, all of the supernatural elements were basically like boiled down to it's just science. It's just biology. There's no such thing as magic, which didn't make sense because the wolves transformed into wolves with different like colored fur than their hair. So like, where's the biology of that, you little bitch? Anyways, second of all, nothing that the main character did furthered the plot. Like all of the things that she did to try to like investigate where her best friend went absolutely did nothing. It did fuck all, and she literally was just kidnapped into solving it, where she found out that everyone figured it out before she did. So like, I love a woman in STEM who doesn't know shit what's going on. It was just so infuriatingly boring and like not what I wanted out of a supernatural story, because it was barely supernatural. There was barely any world building. I hated it. It might as well just have been a mafia romance. Also, I cannot stand people who call this a megaverse, because it's fucking not. There is a knot, but that's not a megaverse knot. That's a werewolf knot. Those are different kinds of knot. If you don't know your knots, then don't talk about them. Next up is Am I the Asshole? I have to cover up a lot of parts in this because this cover is absolutely salacious, because this thing bills itself as being like a spice positive journey of a girl falling in love with like a demon lady, and like they come into their own and they figure out shit. That's not what this fucking is. This is about a boring white bread vanilla lady who's trying to figure out if she should stay with the man that she's about to marry when this demon lady comes on the picture, and they like have the most boring, drawn out, will they, won't they, please just fucking do it already, like romance. Allegedly, it's not really a romance. And it also has the bizarre plotline of an alcoholic falling in love with a woman whose last partner was unalived by a drunk driver, and it's never addressed with any depth. Not to mention the plotline of also the woman who's a demon was basically like sex trafficked, and that's never addressed either. This book was trash. And also, as someone who was like not drinking alcohol a very long time, the fact that their bachelorette party was just camping, like that was fucking foul. In 3rd place, we have The Brutal Prince. This was a fucking trash fire. So this is about like an Italian girl who has to marry an Irish guy because the Irish guy needs her family's help in order to get voted into some fucking office. I don't remember. I read this ages ago, but the hatred I have for it burns still so fucking bright, because this was just awful. First of all, I understand that this was initially like self-published and then was later picked up to be like traditionally published, and like I appreciate the work that goes into that. However, I am sick and fucking tired of like books getting picked up to be traditionally published and not getting a lick of editing. They fucking need it. There was nonsense all over this book. First of all, whole sentences were repeated verbatim, word for word, within lines of each other. Like storylines didn't make any fucking sense. There were things that could have been shifted just a little bit to make them like flow more cohesively. And I understand there's only so much you can change within a plot before it like becomes a whole different beast. But the two back to back unrelated kidnappings was insane. Not to mention, this has the worst trope ever, which is like the exotification of a white woman with a tan, and I fucking hate that, because it's exactly what it sounds like at the tin. It's a white woman who's got a tan, and everyone's like, oh my god, she's so unique and interesting and cool, I wonder what it is. It's like, you fucking fucks. This was so bad. And the spice was bad too, because there's supposed to be a lot of spice in this, but like it was like inserts tab A into slot B, and that was fucking it. I felt nothing for this. Nothing was good about this. I hated it, and I had so many things to say. In 2nd place, we have Guardian. Every single fucking volume. I hated this so goddamn bad. Like, each consecutive volume was just worse than the last one, because it started out with a lot of promise. I liked the chemistry between the main couple. I thought it was interesting with like the magical elements and some of the like mythology of like Chinese folklore that I don't know, and I thought that was fantastic. But every single volume just became more and more of like the plot moving the characters, and the characters having zero agency within their own story, and like the plot was so focused on moving people around and not explaining anything to the audience that by the time we ended up in a new place on like the journey, you were like, how did we get here? What are we doing here? What's our objective? And it never told you, and it never made sense, and it never connected, and it was just that on, and it got to the point where it was just input-dumping these huge swaths of like nonsense, because the next volume was like, oh yeah, none of that was real. What the fuck? Why was it like 80 pages then? I hated this so fucking much. I didn't even read the extras, and like every potentially interesting payoff was so boring and anticlimactic and did basically nothing. And so like, what were you reading for? The stuff that wasn't outright told to you in book 1 had no payoff in the later books. It was just like, it was so boring. It was so disappointing. And this has officially put me off of reading any Priest volumes ever. Like, I was already really hesitant because, like, don't really vibe with some of her stories. But this, done. Never picking up another Priest novel, and I will be so glad to. Last and certainly least is Circe. I hated this fucking book so goddamn much. It's just so fucking bad, okay? This is the most woman-hating, anti-feminist, pick-me-ass bitch story that I've ever fucking laid eyes on. Anyone who calls this a feminist masterpiece is fucking delusional, because what the fuck did you read? There was some disconnect happening here. That's not what this is. This is a trash fire, because Circe hates every woman she ever meets. She thinks they're vapid and stupid. Even the women who are in the same exact situation as her, like her sister, who had to deal with their awful father and then their terrible brothers, she's like, you're the fucking worst, because you didn't decide to be the meekest little bitch like me. And then like the other nymphs and dryads and like minor goddesses who get sent to her island as punishment alongside her, she also was like, oh my god, they're so stupid, they're fucking Hermes. Bitch, you fucked Hermes. Oh my god. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Circe just lacks all agency in her own story. Like, she just doesn't fucking do anything. Things happen to her. She's stuck on this fucking island, and the rest of the story is the plot is that Madeline Miller is like very carefully and lovingly rewriting the entire Wikipedia page about Circe, and it's all of these characters from these more interesting myths just showing up and telling Circe what just fucking happened, and she's like, oh, okay, and then that's fucking it, and it's god awful. There's no point, there's no rhyme or reason to any of this. This is directionless, it's themeless, there's no messaging, and like, not to say the fucking least of which is that after all of the complaining she does in this book about her being basically a pawn to gods that are stronger than her and to the other men in her life, she decides at the end of the book to become immortal so that she can play happy wife with her ex-lover's fucking son. That's sick. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Oh my god. Oh my god. I hated this book. I hated this book so fucking much. And I don't understand why everyone loved it. I don't ever understand why anyone calls this a feminist masterpiece, because it's not. She hates women. Do you hate women? There are a couple of lines that are like, oh my god, it's really hard being a woman. That's not feminist. That's not feminism. That's just being like, oh, it is hard to be a woman. You have to be a girl's girl. You have to care about women to be a feminist, not just your plight, you bitch. So those are the worst 5 books I read in 2024. Come back tomorrow when I'm talking about the best 5 books I read in 2024. Some of them get freaky. I am not going to apologize for my taste.